I want to go to something completely different now. If you go to sign up your children for competitive sport these days, you might be surprised by some of the information and choices that you're presented with. Sign your kids up for cricket, for instance, and you'll get a policy statement like this. It says, in part, Australian cricket supports the participation of gender diverse and transgender people electing to participate in community cricket in accordance with their gender identity, whether or not this aligns with the sex they were assigned at birth, and supports them to do so in a safe and inclusive environment. Fair enough, seemingly unnecessary, but you want everyone to be welcome and no discrimination and plenty of tolerance about a sporting club. Then you go to tick off the gender of your child when you're registering them online, and you have these options. You have male or female, of course, then the option of preferring not to reveal a gender for your child, then the options of gender binary or gender fluid, and then differently identified, whatever that means. Why? Why? Shouldn't you just sign up for a team? If there are separate boys and girls teams, choose one. Your gender or your child's gender or sex is your business and their business, presumably. If there's only two competitions on offer, male or female, then choose a gender, sign up. Why do we have to have this sort of suite of options presented to us? It's unnecessary, and it seems a bit like activism or virtue signalling at the very least. And the only thing it can do for the kids, if they're seeing this stuff, is confuse them. In my experience around a lot of sporting clubs, transgender people have been accepted as the individuals they are without any fuss at all. What problem are these people trying to fix, presenting us with all these options? To talk about this and some related issues, I'm joined by Liberal Senator Claire Chandler. She's a Tasmanian senator. She joins me from Parliament House in Canberra. Thanks for joining us, Claire. I want to get into the role of women and transgender sport in a moment that you've been talking about. But what do you feel about these suite of options provided to parents when they're just trying to register their kids at the local sporting club?
Look, I think looking at this information that you've just shown your viewers, Chris, it's hardly surprising, really, that sport in Australia has come to this point where we're buying into the idea of people being able to play in a sporting code for the gender that they identify with, completely ignoring the biological reality of sex and the safety concerns and fairness concerns that exist when you have biological males playing against females, despite the fact that they might identify as being a woman. So it is certainly not surprising to me, unfortunately. Like I say, I think this is where we're coming undone a little bit in our sporting arena, and what is, really creating this environment where people feel unsafe on the playing field, particularly women.
Well, it just seems unnecessary, really, especially dealing with kids, to throw all this stuff into the mix. But we've talked before about this issue of women playing against people who are born men, transgender women, and the safety issues there. It's an obvious issue. I just want to show you've been talking about this in Parliament. Here's a little clip of what you had to say in the Senate about this last week.
So if you say you're not comfortable playing women's contact sports against biological males, you're at risk of breaching your league's inclusion policy and being suspended or even banned. So many women have contacted me with concerns about this issue, but they are worried if they speak publicly or even internally, they might face consequences at their club or at their place of work.
Well, there you are, Claire. That makes a lot of sense. I just could get you to expand on that a little bit, because we can all see there will be safety issues. We've raised them before. We've all seen some of the athletes that have played in women's competitions and how they can be a lot bigger and stronger. But it's this fear of speaking up about it that worries me. You're saying that women in sport are really worried, I suppose, about cancelled, to use a popular term. They're being cancelled if they actually dare to raise their concerns.
Absolutely, Chris. Both men and women that have contacted me across the country and across the world about this issue are certainly concerned that they can't speak out about their beliefs. They all agree with me, of course, but they feel that they can't speak out for fear of retribution by their friends, their place of work, that, they will be cancelled, so to speak. And I mean, it's very easy for me as a senator with a platform to be able to go into the chamber, as I do, and speak about these issues. And I have been called transphobic by some opposition senators this week. But I think that sets a terrible example for the people that agree with me, that they feel that they can't vocalise their views on this issue because they'll be labelled as transphobic too. It sets an absolutely shocking example, both in terms of what this issue stands for and, of course, free speech more broadly.
Yeah, look, we all understand the sensitivities. Nobody wants to humiliate or discriminate against transgender people, but there's very real and obvious practical issues here. We've seen it played out when it comes to the Olympics and Olympic trials, when it comes to records and eligibility, let alone the safety concerns of perhaps girls playing against someone who's biologically male in contact sports. I mean, surely we can have a sensible discussion about those safety issues without the abuse and silencing and fear of being labelled transphobic.
Of course, and I think that these views that we are talking about, Chris, are common sense views that are shared by the vast majority of all Australians. I think most Australians recognise that women's sport exists for women to compete in and men's sport exists for men to compete in. But you see this whole concept of fairness and safety being thrown away in favour of clubs and sporting organisations being seen to be inclusive. It's incredibly worrying.
Well, you mentioned you've been criticised in the Senate. Let's have a look at one of your opponents calling you out or criticising you, unfairly criticising you, I would have said. This is Nita Green in the Senate, a Labor senator.
Senator Chandler has made at least 2 speeches in the Senate since the COVID-19 crisis began on these issues, trying to veil her transphobic views as faux feminist values.
Are you transphobic, Senator?
I certainly don't think I am transphobic, Chris. I think I'm just speaking out on behalf of the majority of Australians who think that women's sport should be for biological women and they shouldn't be forced to play against trans women who are biologically male. But like I said, I'm happy to go into the chamber and say what I say and have my views scrutinised by those on the other side. But what I'm deeply concerned about is the standard that this sets for the Australian women that don't have a platform to defend their views. I mean, how many Australian women must be looking at that footage and thinking whether or not Anthony Albanese agrees with them?
No, there's no doubt. I think that what you're saying, the vast majority of Australians would nod their head in agreement, but in the sort of media political class, few people will say these things as directly. Tell me, though, what should happen? What about transgender athletes? What should happen? I mean, if they're not physically superior, can there be competitions they play in, or do they need to play in a male competition? Is it a case-by-case judgment? Well, you know, it's a very, very difficult area here because there's all sorts of different scenarios.
It is a difficult area, Chris, and I think you raise an important point in saying that there are different scenarios, and often I think that will be dependent on the type of sport that we're talking about. So I think it really is incumbent upon each sporting code to look at these, very difficult issues to work through and come up with a way that they can sensibly approach them that enables people to play sport if they want to, but importantly ensures that women who are playing sport are able to do so in a safe and fair environment.
Thanks for joining us, Senator. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Chris.
Senator Claire Chandler there, Tasmanian Senator, down in Canberra. They're all back in Canberra, still in Canberra for this sitting week.